Hey guys, so here we are in Idlewild. We're up about 6,000 feet, which puts us not in a forest we've been to so far. We've been into the ocean, we were into the estuaries, we were into a scrub oak area, we were in a pinyon pine area, and now we're in an alpine area where you're going to see all kinds of different plants and animals. Not so many animals as usual, but we will see some different types of plants. And demarcation for this is basically you're looking at what we call ponderosa pines. Ponderosa pines kind of look like mini redwoods. They go straight, and they're very good for timber. So you would see these types of trees used for timber back in the day, and still to this day. Ponderosa pine is still an active lumbering type of tree. You also see the cedar, which is also kind of interesting, and the manzanita. But the one thing that I wanted to draw your attention to is Mount San Jacinto. If you look up there at the top, at the very tip top, this is a granite formation that has been pushed up by the San Jacinto Fault, and you can see where the trees are. And at the very tip top, when it gets to about 10,400 feet, the trees kind of stop growing, and that's called the tree line. And up above that is what we call an Arctic tundra, because it's too high for the trees to actually actively grow. So you'll see a lot of different plants, and some trees, some scrubby trees, but also bare grass and some different types of really small plants that don't really need a whole lot in order to survive. And that area does get a lot of snow too. So welcome to Idlewild. Alright guys, so here we are, and we're here in this little boulder field, and this is kind of the area that we were in that this type of granite, this gray granite, is part of the formation that actually created this area. The San Jacinto Fault, which is kind of a runoff fault or a parallel fault to the San Andreas Fault, it runs all the way down into the desert where we were before, the Borrego area. And this is actually the most active fault in North America, and one of the most active faults in the whole world. There's constant earthquakes here, and the reason is that this whole mountain range and everything is quite new. But you'll see these granite boulders, and if you kind of look down here, you'll see how it's kind of made into pebbles. Well, this is part of the erosive process, and because of the erosive process, these mountains and boulders and stuff were allowed to emerge through the millions of years. But it's a beautiful place, this area, and like I say, we'll be looking at some different types of trees and plants, and hopefully some animals. Now, oftentimes, as California expanded after the California Gold Rush in 1849, in 1860 they decided they wanted to try to find gold here in this Idlewild area, in the Mount San Jacinto area, and this is kind of what they were looking for. They were looking for this quartzite, and this isn't a good example of a quartzite vein because they are quite prominent in the gold mining areas. But this quartz, it's one of the hardest minerals on Earth. It has, on the Mohs scale, it has a hardness of 7, and if you think of a diamond, it has a hardness of 10. So it's a really hard rock, and the miners would dig through this granite to get to the hardest rock in the thing, and inside the quartz, oftentimes you'd find what they call a gold vein. Gold would be found in these quartz veins, and because of that, the miners would do what was called hard rock mining. The closest one, hard rock mine that they found actual gold here, was in Julian, which is south of us here, but part of the same earthquake and San Jacinto fault system. Alright, so this is a ponderosa pine, and if you notice the roots down here. You can tell they go down. And one of the things about these trees is that when they're first sprouted, they actually, from that seed, before that plant actually emerges, they'll send a taproot down. And at our school, we had a pine tree that lived right near the boat at Silvergate, and it ended up not making it. So we took some seeds from it and planted them to see if they would grow, and they actually did grow. We had a couple of trees sprout. It was a Tory pine tree, and this little seed had a root on it about 17 inches, and it had a little tiny little green leaf on top. And once it stopped growing at about 17 inches, we planted it, and now the trees have been about 2 years, and now the trees are about that big. Very slow growing, but the roots go straight down, as opposed to some of the trees where their roots grow out and cover the forest floor to grab nutrients. These are going down, and they're looking for water, and that's what creates a healthy tree. And this porous granite soil really allows the water to flow through to create some really interesting formations, but also some forest here. Okay guys, so this is what we call a parasitic relationship right here. And you're saying, what? This plant right here, this is a mistletoe. The same stuff that your folks might hang around the house at Christmas, and if you get caught into the mistletoe, you can get a smooch. But mistletoe is a parasitic plant, meaning that it will grow onto another plant. In this case, it's an oak tree, and a white oak tree, and it sucks nutrients and moistures from the tree itself and gives nothing back to the tree. There's no benefit to the tree. Actually, it just takes away from the tree. So in the animal and plant world, if a plant or animal is that way, takes everything but gives nothing back, then that's called parasitic relationship. It's a parasite. And so you'll see that all throughout the forest here. You'll see little packets of this kissing plant. Okay, so here we are. This is an alpine forest. One of the things about an alpine forest is snow, and so it has snowed just recently. We're up here on going up to the peak of San Jacinto, but right here you can see this is the trees are so much different. They're bigger and wider and straighter. These are those ponderosa pines. And being up this high, we're well above 6,000 feet right here. You can see it snowed just a few weeks ago, and it's still here because at night it does get quite chilly. But once again, just like in all the environments we saw, this snow will melt, it'll change into water, it'll flow down the hills, eventually hit a river, and end up in the ocean. And this is one of those little creeks right here. Starting right here, this little rivulet. Well, all this water will one day end up in the Pacific Ocean, right down there in San Diego or Los Angeles. Alright you guys, so that little trickle of water that we saw up top, well this is what happens. It all comes down into more of a creek, and if you see this, this is one of those alpine creeks we talked about. Isn't it beautiful here? Alright you guys, so this is kind of our last little bit on our Alpine trip here. This is kind of what we were hoping to see, is an Alpine meadow, and it's a little lower in altitude, and it's kind of where all the water ends up, and this kind of grassland open area, you'll see this in Alpine areas, and in some of the really high elevations in the United States and the world, you'll see these grand meadows of hills and hills of grass. But basically you just have kind of a grassy area that's surrounded by the types of trees that you find in the Alpine forest. This is what we call an Alpine meadow.